Today I'm going to talk about repatriation. What is it and how can you get through it? Now, what is repatriation? Well, last week I discussed expatriation, when you move from your home country to a foreign one. Repatriation is when you move from that foreign country back home. And a lot of people don't talk about this, but this can actually be just as difficult, if not more difficult, than expatriation. And I'll tell you why. There are two main factors which makes repatriation difficult. Number one is reverse culture shock. The reason why reverse culture shock happens is because you don't expect it to. You think, oh, this is where I grew up, this is my home, I should feel normal coming back. But the thing is, you don't. You almost feel like a foreigner in your own country. Things that were once familiar now seem very unusual because you don't feel like you're part of that culture anymore. You're no longer in touch with what's going on in your home country. It is very likely that things have changed since you've been back home. The topics of culture are different, the fashions, whatever is popular is very different. What they're talking about can be very different. And in reality, the thing that is probably most different is not your home culture. It's you. You are a different person now. You have evolved. You have grown into a more sophisticated version of yourself because you have pushed yourself into an uncomfortable situation. And we always grow from uncomfortable situations. An article I was reading put it in a really nice way in describing this as being a triangle. When you have lived abroad, you become a triangle. Say your home country is a circle and the new country you are living in is a square. You now become a triangle because you no longer fit into either country. You have aspects of both country within you now, and you are a more cultivated person, yet you don't fit into either one anymore. So let's say you've moved away into a new country and you've been there for a few years. You've grown, you've evolved, you've become a more better version of yourself. And you go back home, and what you don't expect is that most people have not changed. You think that people are growing at the same rate, but in fact that's not true. So you might be shocked to see that people are still in similar situations as when you left them. And this can leave you feeling very isolated because you no longer fit in with the people that you used to hang out with. You no longer really fit in with your friends back home. And even if you go back to work, you don't fit in with the people at work either. At least when you were living in the foreign country, you could assimilate with other expats because they were all coming to this new country away from home and they were living in this similar mentality, this similar experience. When you move back home, there are no other expats because everybody is a natural citizen. So you kind of feel loss of touch with your friends back home, possibly your family, your work colleagues, even the culture. It's no wonder that moving back home can be a difficult process. The other difficulty associated with repatriation is you now have raised expectations. When you moved abroad, you did so usually either for work or for studying. So when you come back home, you have a whole new set of skills that you've learned. Yet when you come back to your home society, back to your work colleagues, your workplace, there's an underutilization of those skills. As a result, you feel more valued in your host country than you do back home. And this can leave you feeling very disillusioned, very misplaced, feeling very much like you don't know where you belong. Now, how do we combat this? The problem with repatriation lies in uncertainty and unmet expectations. And believe me, reverse culture shock is a real thing. I've been living in London for nearly 4 years now, and it's always a surprise how different life is back home in LA. I have to mentally prepare myself because everything is different, from the people, their personalities, the way they talk, their value system. the way that you go about town, the weather, everything is different. And the way that I actually get by that, the way that I can properly prepare for that adjustment is to mentally prepare myself for what I'm to expect. I mean, they don't even value football. Soccer. How can you not like soccer? Okay, so what can we do about this? Well, we can prepare. So the first thing that you want to do is to increase your communication with your friends, your family, and your colleagues back home. Get updated on what's going on back there. And maybe you can find someone to help you find accommodation so that you have some place to stay when you go back. That will automatically ease some of the tension. Another thing you can do is reduce moving anxiety by getting started packing sooner. So start packing up all of your boxes, everything that you want to take back home with you, and think about how you're going to go about selling everything that you want to get rid of or leave behind. And a very, very important thing to do is give a proper goodbye to your city, to the host city. You've spent a good amount of time and a good portion of your life in this experience. So you want to make sure to say goodbye to every aspect of it, from the people that you know here, to the places that you would normally go, the actions that you would normally take, the scenery, the sights. You want to make sure to give yourself a proper goodbye so you can close this chapter of your life. Something that will be really beneficial in this process for you is to reduce uncertainty. Whenever we move to a new place, we have a certain level of uncertainty. We don't really know what to expect. On one hand, this can be a really good thing because it keeps your mind open and flexible, which is why moving abroad in the first place can be a much easier experience because you don't know what to expect. However, when you go back home, you already have an idea of what it's like, and so you have certain expectations. The problem is that everything has changed, not just the city, but also you have changed. So returning back home is a much more difficult process. So you want to reduce uncertainty and give yourself a better sense of control. You want to start paying attention to the news, the politics, and the culture back home. You want to refamiliarize yourself with what's going on there. Also, it's really beneficial to visualize what life will be like back home. Take yourself on a mental journey of a day in your life back home. Where will you be going? What actions will you be taking? And what behaviors will you be doing? Who will you be speaking to? Your mind doesn't know the difference between something that's imaginary and something that you're really experiencing. So if you can visualize and mentally prepare yourself for what life will be like back home, you'll have a much easier time adjusting when you're actually back there. Also, think of what will be expected of you from your family, your friends, and your job back home. And perhaps you might have to get reacquainted with the social customs. For instance, when you greet somebody, do you give them a handshake? Do you give them a hug? A kiss on the cheek? You just have to start remember what it's like to be back in that society of your home. Predictive control allows people to know what is expected of them. Studies show that those whose expectations are met not only have a higher success rate of adjusting to life back home, but they also have an increase in job performance. So remember, repatriation is just as difficult, if not more so, than expatriation. So if you can harness these behaviors and put these actions into place, not only will you have a more high chance of readjusting to life back home, but you'll have a more enjoyable and successful experience. When you close the door on one part of your life, you open the door to the next part of your life. So remember to stay positive, keep an open mind, because your new journey awaits and it can be life-changing. See you next week.